And welcome back to my man cave. I'm not an expert. That's my channel name. I make a lot of things and you're welcome to try them. Just remember, use caution when you're making these things. Don't want anybody to get hurt. And today I made a brass tumbler. I guess it could also be used for a rock tumbler. It's really simple. Seems to be extremely reliable. Very easy to make, inexpensive, and what I'll do probably first here is show you what I do to polish the brass, then I'll show you how I made the unit. First of all, the tumbling jug couldn't be any cheaper. As you can see, Walmart $2 applesauce. After I eat the applesauce, I have a fabulous container to put everything in. And you can also use the other containers to store your clean brass. It works perfectly for me. And depending on what flavor you want, you can get different colored caps and color code everything. So the first thing I'll start out by doing is showing you how I clean the brass. The other thing I wanted to say is you can see these applesauce containers have a handhold here. At first I was worried about that being a bother and tumbling it, but it actually seems to be an advantage as these tumble over here. This depression in here seems to move the brass around perfectly. I noticed it tends to cause a flipping motion is what you'd want there. So I've been using this container right here the whole time, and I probably have about 20 hours on this. I really don't see any degradation in it. And this is about 200 pieces of 40 caliber. It's already been deprimed, and you could actually probably fill the brass up to here. So if this were 9mm, this would hold about 400 rounds of 9mm. Next thing is take this and I put 1/4 a teaspoon of Lemmy Shine Original in there. Everybody tells me it doesn't take much. I haven't experimented with different strengths. And 1 shot, doesn't take very much, of Dawn dish liquid, and then I'll fill it up to water up to that level and I'll be right back. First, the next thing here, stainless steel pins. I put in 1/2 cup here. This is an 1/8 of a cup measuring system. And this is really about the only thing that I had to buy with the stainless steel pins. I got them off eBay, 2.5 pounds, free shipping for $20. Okay, just put the lid on and put it on the rollers. And you can see it going around there. And I don't know if it's necessary or not, but after I let it mix up a little while there, I pop the lid because there might be a slight chemical reaction with this and it gives off a tiny bit of gas. You can see it wasn't much, it probably not necessary, but I do it anyhow. And then I usually let it run for 1.5 to 2 hours. Also, you can see that it's rubbing against the paint here. It's a smooth plastic there. I found no problems with that whatsoever, or if it goes over here and rubs against this, again, it's a very smooth plastic. It's almost like a slippery surface. Have not had any problems with that. Okay, so I've had this running for 1.5 hours, and it looks pretty clean. Take a quick sample of one here. Put in a little spoon there. And you can see inside the primer holes are clean. Inside shell casings, they're clean. And they have a nice shine to them outside. Okay, lucky for me, I've got a wash tub right off my workroom here, so pour it all in there. You can see all the stainless steel pins. Take some water here on a hose, old shower head, rinse them all off. Just tumble them to get all the stainless steel pins out of there. Next step here is I tumbled all the stainless steel pins out of there. So now I roll them around in a towel here to dry the outside water off. The reason I want to dry the outside water off is so it doesn't leave any water spots on the brass if you're that particular about it keeping it nice and shiny. And then after that, I've got an old basket here with a window screen in it. I just gather them all up now. And the next step is drying them. So now for drying them, I just found this old chunk of wood with grooves in it. The screws are already there, and I have this fan on. And you can see the tower fan will blow through that and dry them all off. It's depending on weather and conditions. It's anywhere from 1 to 2 hours to 3 hours at the worst. Overall view of the tumbler system. Not complicated at all. Another handle. Again, this is the mechanism for adjusting the tension of this roller against that roller. Pretty simple and straightforward. Okay, the first thing I was going to show you that I built on the frame here is putting on the rubber grommet feet. These again are those rubber grommets that are used to, for example, if you buy a new air conditioner, they put these on the end of the copper hoses so the air conditioner cannot be contaminated. Found these around a job site. I don't know if you can buy them at the hardware or not, but they're pretty simple. You can see they have a hole in them. Initially I just mounted them to the surface, but I found that a little bump would tear that screw out through there. So I put in plywood reinforcements here. And I just get screwed down like that. And they're different sizes, so I had to fit them up to the size of the holes there. Okay, for the motor tension system, I just found a piece of scrap aluminum, drilled a hole in it, a round hole obviously, then pounded a nylon insert in there. And this is for the motor tensioning system. You'll see clearly after it's all put together why this works so well. And then this goes in there into the nylon insert to adjust the motor tension. And I had to carve out a hole here, put that in there. And secured it in with a drywall screw. And that's it. Okay, the next piece I was going to put in here is the idle roller that goes back here. This hole is a little bit bigger back here so it can get through with the rubber. And this is a 3/16 piece of polished steel that I found out of an old printer. I took the printer out. This was used for rolling the paper through. And I just covered it with a piece of surgical hosing. I originally just had holes in here and it worked fine against the wood with a little bit of oil, but I had some scrap Delaron blocks that works beautifully, and I'm going to use that to mount this on here. So I'll put that together off camera. Okay, on the bearings here, I made these holes oversized so you can have a little bit of adjustment there if you need it. But it just goes in there. Tighten them down. Check that it's not binding. No problem there. And I saved these rubber washers from the printer. They act as good keepers to keep that on there. You can see it rolls nice and freely. And this is the drive wheel mechanism. This is steel rod I found in an old discarded printer again. It's 7/16 steel, polished steel. And I didn't have any rubber hose laying around, so I had some old spark plug wires. I just cut the end off 4 old spark plug wires and put them on there and washed them. They were a little bit greasy, but they worked well. And the main drive wheel here, I just drilled a hole through it there and put a piece of copper wire as a cotter pin. That comes off there. And this goes in here and bolts on just like the same way as the idle wheeler did. And if you don't have, I just happen to have this plastic wheel laying around that fit well. If you don't have one of these laying around, you could easily make it out of a nice high-grade plywood. Do one large sheet, one large wheel, and make a smaller wheel on here, so you could have something to pin it through with a cotter pin. Okay, here it is with all the rollers assembled. You can see there's very little friction. And the next thing would be mounting the engine on here, or the motor I should say. And the very first problem I had is you can see the drive shaft there, very thin. And if I just put it against the motor against the wheel here, it wouldn't work, it would just slip. Again, these came to the rescue, these copper pipe pluggers. Just put it on here, and it works beautifully. When you put it up against here, it spins it very well. The next thing was trying to put a tension system on here. So I put a bolt only in one area here. And again, a nylon insert nut so the nut wouldn't vibrate loose. And I'm only going to pin it on this back corner here. I don't know if you can see that all that well. Okay, so I'm only going to put one pin there, and that's going to let the motor pivot there. And then I'll put that other screw in there, and that will apply tension to the motor. As I tighten it down, it'll swing the motor in. You can see that a little bit better this way. So this will be pivoting on one point here, and you can bring this in, and that'll put pressure up against the base and push it into the wheel. This is an old 1/10 horsepower 1725 RPM wheel I had laying around. Came off an old small tool, and you can usually find these on eBay. I've seen them for as cheap as $25. This is a single speed, and if you can find somebody on eBay that's selling one of these, you can either have a single speed, or some of them have a variable speed, and they're meant to go on small tools like scroll saws. Okay, so here's the motor. You can see I've only got one bolt with a lock nut on it, nylon insert, so it can pivot like this. And then I'm going to take this screw, and if you remember that aluminum piece I had earlier, that goes into here. And just threads right in. And this will set the tension on the motor. Adjust the tension on the drive here. So I again have that wing nut down there that goes into lock nut with nylon insert. You just keep on tightening it down until you get the right tension on there. And that goes at 36 revolutions per minute there. Last thing I'm going to do is put a handle on each end. Again, these came off a job site there for when they deliver doors and windows. They screw these onto the side to lift the windows up and the doors up. Then they throw them off after they're done. But I just wanted something easy to pick it up and carry this around, so I'll put one of these handles on both ends. And for those of you who like a few dimensions, the base, this part right here, that's a piece of wood 18.5 inches long by 5.5 inches wide and 0.75 inches thick, or 3/4 of an inch. The distance between the sides is 8 inches. The sides themselves are identical, but they're basically made out of 1 inch thick stock. They're 5.5 inches tall, 5.5 inches wide. Here's the locations for the 2 holes for the large drive roller up front. This one right here, that one's 3.25 inches up, 7/16 diameter polished rod, and it's 3/4 of an inch over. For the small idle roller here, that's 4.25 inches high and 1.25 inches from the end. And I found that this one does need to be higher than the front one, so you put enough weight on this so it'll spin the drum. The last bit of data here are the gear reductions from this small wheel to the large wheel. That's 3/4 of an inch over 4.5 inches. For the next gear reduction would be 3/4 of an inch to 4.5 inches. So if you look at the map, it's 750 RPMs multiplied by 0.75 by 0.75 divided by 6 divided by 4.5, and it comes out to 36.5 revolutions per minute. People on the internet say ideal is between 30 and 40. Hope you enjoyed the video. One last note, this is a 1/10 horsepower motor, and this is 525 shells of 9mm, and I'm guessing the motor is probably still a little bit large at this being 1/10 of a horsepower. If you go on Tumblr's page, they have these little tiny motors about this big, and I didn't notice what horsepower they were, but if you're that interested in finding a more optimal or smaller model, there's someplace you can look. But so far, when it comes to buying one of these motors used, again, eBay, I've seen them as low as $25, as high as $50. So I hope that helps. Enjoy the day.